Some of you guys ask what cold storage solution I use. I use this, and it is the Decent Wallet. All right. I also, of course, have a ledger like this. All right. You can get a discount basically from going into the affiliate link, which is in all the live video descriptions and recorded and so on. And for the yahoos that are out there, they're like, this is just a shield. And, Will Fix pointed this out, and it's a great point. Were you aware that you don't necessarily get a discount link just going straight to the site? No, you actually have to go through a platform like this. So how cool is that? I don't think anybody's complaining about that. But anyway, use the link, get a discount. There's another one here. If you're the type of person you want to get one for you and your significant other, you can get two of them. They actually have another promotion, which is this, and I think this is cool. You can get an all-in-one card wallet plus backup card package. Interesting. I thought that was cool. And again, one of the main key things I like about the Decent Wallet is not having to do the red tape of jumping through all the hoops for XDC and the custom folder. I mean, Edward Vincent can vouch on that. Some of you guys can too as well in regards to ledger. That was a pain in the butt. You don't have that problem. You literally open up your phone, it's on your app, track everything that's going on, right? And saying goes, not your keys, not your crypto. You know the drill. Check it all out though if you wish to do so. It is truly the cold storage solution that I use for the most part. There's still some on ledger that I kind of split it up on it and so on. So it is what it is. But if I have preference over one, I'm going with this one. A lot easier to use and so on. And some people, even to this day, still ask me which one to use. Let's start things off by giving props, giving credit where credit's due to the one and only Neo X Tricks. And go ahead and share what he has. He has great AI programs in his compilations. But Neo has something here that also came to my attention. I said to myself, this is worth sharing with the community, big time. And so Neo, who can be followed at Bana817, mentions this. He says, I say it again for newcomers, right? There's a lot of newcomers. Maybe there's a few newcomers here tonight. I'm sure there is. Newcomers. Among the members of Jasmy, there is an internationally renowned expert in cryptography and encryption, Tadashi Marita-san. And I talked about him before on the previous outline. He is the pioneer behind NFC technology and Felica card in Japan, among others. Now, we talked a little bit about Felica even on the previous segment. But what is important is to recognize that, like it says, he's a brilliant inventor, has navigated his entire career with the Sony Academy, patenting extensive technologies who can be spanning around 30 pages for various prestigious Japanese brands. He is entrusted with the security oversight of the entire Jasmy ecosystem, making his contribution invaluable. Yes, like I've mentioned, I feel as though he is the most unsung hero of the Jasmy management, the bigwigs, if you will. That is not him, but that's a cool picture that Neo X Tricks brought to us. So again, the whole thing is this: recognizing some of the key players, Tadashi Marita. Now, I want to put out a little disclaimer, okay? This is not me doing a quant/Jasmy ISO TC307 thing again. This is a different one. I want to point this out as well. I think it's very interesting. Now, in the past, I mentioned that also Kunitake Ando is part of another particular company, and we did a deep dive about this, that is already has an ISO standard. And I said to myself, for all the people who said or gave me criticism saying the whole thing of quant for the future with Jasmy, that's too speculative and so on, it will never happen because Jasmy is not aware of an ISO standard, that of course we debunked that. We said no, it's Ando. Ando understands the ISO standard because he has a company that already has an ISO standard. But let's talk about ISO again. Now, it's not TC307, which is the quant network standard, but look what's mentioned here. I'm going to come out of the screen to put some emphasis on the material. Look at this. So as you can see, it mentions trends in ISO/IEC standardization of IC card technology. Oh, yes. You know where I'm going with this. IC cards, Felica, right? Absolutely. That's why I mentioned it before on the previous outline. And when you watch the chopped up version of this on the recorded, please watch the other video for it to make more sense for this video. Okay? So in this abstract, it talks about trends in the standardization of technology related to IC cards containing integrated circuits, focusing on what ISO/IEC activities, and as it also mentions, as we know, ISO International Organization for Standardization, and IEC is International Engineering Consortium. It also describes NTT's contributions to those activities. This part is really crucial. Relationships among international and Japanese organizations. I'm going to blow this up a little bit more to make it a little bit more easier for you to see, especially if you're Boomer effing Sooner watching on his couch with his dog Monica. It says here, standardization organizations concerned with the IC card technology are shown in Figure 1. I want to break this down. You may think this is nerdy, but if you understand the bigger picture, what Jasmy's trying to do, this will all make sense, and if anything, you'll appreciate the research. So, talks about International Organization Standardization, which is ISO. This other one, which I wasn't even aware of, ITU, International Telecommunication Union, respectively. IC card, again, every single time I see this, I think of Felica, right, with Tadashi Marita. So IC card tech is categorized as information tech. So a joint technical committee that extends across both ISO and IEC has been formed to lead international standardizations in that field. Do you know that there's 17 subcommittees? Remember I was talking about the whole thing with quant, how there's working groups? This one has subcommittees. They have been formed within ISO/IEC. JTC1 is actually what's called. Matters related to IC cards are handled by SC17. So again, subcommittees. It comprises of 8 working groups. Back to the whole thing I was talking about with you guys with ISO working groups. I don't know if a lot of you guys remember all this stuff, and I understand there's a lot of newcomers, so bear with me. That deal with elemental technology and specific applications. SC17 also cooperates with other relevant committees, which is, for example, JTC1 and Subcommittee 31 and some of these other ones. Now here it is a little bit blurry. Bear with me on this. If you could, try your best to see what you know is presented on the screen. Now I think this is a huge deal. This is something I recently found myself. So what you see here is these international organizations. IEC Electronics, ISO Non-Electronics, and the ITU Communications, Information Technology. You have the ISO standard teamed up with that other one. You see here the subcommittee, 17 of them. What about working groups? 11 working groups. That is the liaison between the bunch. But here is the thing that I think is one of the aha moments. Remember how Jasmy talked about the whole thing of branching out? It's not just about data democratization. It's now also about finance democracy, is it not? Let's zoom back in. Look what it says. It says specifically here that you have banking securities and other financial services with TC66, TC68, SC6, retail banking, these other standards, security technology. Again, security technology? Are you trying to tell me that Jasmy's securitization of what they're trying to do with finance democracy would also branch out from, I guess you could say, data democracy and also finance democracy through securitization, through the actual tech, go hand in hand? The answer is yes. How about this part? Automatic authentication data retrieval technology. Biometric authentication. Isn't that like at least 3 things from Jasmy's utility that meet the compliance and the standards labeled here? Yes, the answer is yes. Look at the right side. Let's go back to that. On this one, you see Japanese organizations, Japan Industrial Standards Committee. This is top right, by the way. Secretariat by METI. Remember when we talked about METI? Remember how Menelaguar, I think, and also Neo-X Tricks, or one or the other, or both, we talked about METI? Go back. Watch the old recorded videos if you choose to learn more about this. You'll be glad you did. JTC1 Information Tech Standards Commission, Secretariat by IPSJ, Japanese National Committee of, for instance, what you saw here for the subcommittees, right? 17, Secretariat by JBMIA, working groups, 10 of them. All right, there was only one that was in research, at least during that time. But the point is this: biometric authentication, bottom left, METI, Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry. Remember how I talked about that, guys? I said, guys, if we should consider Jasmy part of the whole big picture for trade. Look at this: IPSJ, Information Processing Society of Japan. And Society of Japan go into what? Society 5.0? How about JBMIA, Japan Business Machine and Information Systems Industry Association? But it gets more into this whole thing of standards, and it pounds it home. It says under the agreement of WTO TBT, which is the World Trade Organization, technical barriers to trade. A new Japanese specification should conform to any existing international standard specifications established by ISO. Japanese industrial standard JIS specifications concerning IC cards back to what? Sony. Back to who? Felica. Back to who especially? Tadashi Marita. Are also in principle to set to be consistent with what ISO IEC specifications, and to have Tadashi Marita part of all this. Maybe he doesn't even realize he's part of this. I'm sure he does, but the whole point is he is your plug. He is your connector. Look at this. The process of setting JIS specifications is illustrated in this figure. We'll get into that in a second. Proposal drafting body draws up a draft of JIS specifications that correspond to ISO/IEC specifications. The draft then goes to Japanese Standards Association for review, revision, and is submitted to Japanese Industrial Standards Committee. That in itself sounds like what? Like ISO, but for Japan. They have their own. So there's ISO that's also in Japan, and there's also this, JISC. Next is the JIS draft discussed by JISC and is sent to the appropriate ministry for enactment. For what? IC card technology. This is the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry, aka METI. Has a breakdown of how all this comes together. And my point is this: you realize, or you got to appreciate, in my opinion, like how this is all put in place. You know, it even talks about Visa, right? Visa's part of this. Gets more into this about the tech. And again, this is a lot of the nerd talk. I don't want to get into it too much. But the point is the standards, and this part right here, look what it says. It says, in conclusion, we describe trends in the standardization technology related to IC cards. Again, back to the whole thing of Felica. And NTT's contribution to that process, focusing on ISO, IEC, and related organizations. Through participation in these kinds of standardization activities, NTT is working to realize an information infrastructure that is both open and interoperable. How do you like that? To allow anyone the carefree, secure, and easy use of electronic services anywhere in the world. How would you like to have Jasmy in compliance with that from the beginning, from the very, very beginning? Let me jump into this next part. I got to show you this. This is good stuff. Remember how we just mentioned IEC? It's called Inclusive Engineering Consortium. And my thing is this part right quick gets into this part about the IEEE. Remember how we talked about Tadashi Marita is part of the IEEE? I don't know if you guys, some of you guys get it. Some of you guys are new, and it's okay. But just know this: the main guy we're talking about, Tadashi Marita, is part of all this. That's big. Absolutely big. You know? Get into this next part. All right, let me show you this. This is from IEC.org, because we talked about IEC.org, and here's your connector if you've been waiting for it. So this is worth pointing out. It's this lady named Shinny Abraham. She was on the previous page, by the way. You know, you can go through it all yourself here if you choose to do so. You don't have to do so. But here is the highlight. I'll come back out of the frame, I should say. This lady Assistant Professor of Electrical and Computer Engineering at Seattle University. I've been to Seattle numerous times because I used to live in Portland, Oregon back in the day. She received the BE degree in telecommunication engineering from this particular university. India in 2007, PhD from Old Dominion University. I mean, she's got a robust history, right? Her research spans the areas of wireless communication. Look at this, Internet of Things. Interesting. How about this? Engineering education research. Again, back to Tadashi Marita. She's also, just like him, a member of the IEEE and ASEE, a technical program committee member of IEEE, Globecom, ICC, all these other ones. And she's a reviewer of several international journals and conferences. But here's your key area. Here is your aha moment, right? Look at the thing about Qualcomm, right? Qualcomm. Okay, is this website new? Yeah, I mean, they updated 2024. But I don't know if you guys remember this. I did a deep dive about Qualcomm. And if anything, what I want to tell you guys is this. I want to show you this because I think it's worth pointing out. If you want to understand the bigger picture of this, and if research is your thing, which apparently is for some of you guys, I want to share this real quick. Qualcomm. 5G Borks Qualcomm. Snapdragon. It says Jasmy Borks Qualcomm and 5G. Why Jasmy's first partner, believe it or not, this was their first partner, still matters. Still matters. Why is that significant? Well, I want to get into that specifically. And that's what we're going to get into right now. So this lady, this plug, if you will, this connector, who's Shinny Abraham, right? The lady I just showed right here. Well, when we go to this, again, shout out to Lil Bidman. I definitely will give him props. I'll give him a little shout out, on the second Chopped Up video. But what's cool to see here is what he posts here. Now, this one's only 1 year ago. He says this links Qualcomm government products. We're going to take you to this. Oh, yes, we are going to take you to this. News from, then Japan, U.S. to agree on security standards for government software. Nishimura and Mayorkas to sign memorandum on cooperation on what, guys? Cybersecurity. And it says Japan and the United States will strengthen defense cooperation in the field of what? Cybersecurity. Both governments are finalizing a memorandum, at least it was then, of understanding to establish the same level of security standards for government procured software to improve the protection of critical infrastructure and reduce risk of disruption to socioeconomic activities and the leakage of confidential information. That was sourced from the Nikkei. And just in case you don't think that Qualcomm does anything with the government, what does that say? Qualcomm's a trusted U.S. government partner. They provide transformative, trustworthy, mission-focused wireless solutions, et cetera, et cetera. Securely enable how the government connects computers and communicates at the pace of innovation. Yeah, take a look at that for a second. Now, let's take you over to the Nikkei. I know I'm out of the frame, but the emphasis should be on the material, not my mug. Japan, U.S. to agree on security standards for government software. Back to what Lil Bidman was talking about, right? And of course, it locks up, the full article because I have actually tried to be a member, but then it asked me all these questions in Japanese and I couldn't interpret it. And I was like, eh. But here's the quick gist. Back on January 5th of 2023, a little over a year ago, says Japan and U.S. will strengthen defense cooperation in the field of cybersecurity. I know it gets a little faded here. Both governments finalizing a memorandum, like I just mentioned. Security standards, government procured software, critical infrastructure, right? Japan's economy, trade, and industry minister, right? Back to the whole thing of METI. Was expected to meet with U.S. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas in Washington, at least back in January of 2023. All right, why is this so significant? Here is why. Before we wrap things up for tonight, I want you guys to understand this. Taro Kono, right? And maybe my connection is getting a little funky right now. I apologize. But Mr. Taro Kono, remember the whole thing of him promoting data-free flow with trust? and why that was so significant? Well, you have to keep in mind the significance of that. Now, data free flow with trust. We understand that when it comes to Japan, what really stands out is that Japan has embraced blockchain and distributed ledger technology. They are going full force when it comes to the whole idea of Web3. Taro Kono, as we know, has, if you will, campaigned, not politically speaking, but campaigned with the whole notion of introducing a blueprint for the world. Took it over to Europe, various other countries. The lady he introduced it to was what kind of word is that? Introduced it to, excuse me. Her name was Margaret Vestager of the European Union, and that was big. European Union got on board. Select members of the European Union countries got on board with data free flow with trust, and if anything, the model of data basketball, free flow with trust was even introduced to the United States, and it was kind of rebranded, right? It's a template, if you will, and even in the House and Senate for both Democrats and Republicans, they couldn't come to an agreement to get this going. But that's actually there. It's just kind of rebranded. Look more into it if you choose to do so. But the point is, these areas of the world that have already embraced crypto. This is back to the whole thing I mentioned over a year ago. Watch out for Jasmy to be the first to do something. And we do see that now in this bull run. Now, back to the whole thing of Taro Kono real quick. Okay? Data free flow with trust, DFFT. We're talking about defense. Some of you guys know about the history of this particular guy. I want to just get into a little bit more of the specifics of him. So let's go ahead and full screen this. This does come from Wikipedia. But the point is, Mr. Kono. So, born as a Japanese politician, serving as a minister of digital or for digital transformation. Think about that for a second. Since August 2022, a member of the Liberal Democratic Party, he served as a minister for administrative reform, regulatory reform from 2015 to 2016, from 2021 to 2020, 2020 to 2021, minister for foreign affairs, and even minister of defense. Yes, minister of defense under Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. He's also the member of the House of Representatives representing Kanagawa's 15th district. Get to this part. He was also acting chairman of the Liberal Democratic Party Committee until November 2003. He was one of the few members of the LDP to oppose the dispatch of the Japan Self-Defense Forces to Iraq. But the point is, he was a minister of defense, and he was for about a year for example, Japan. And when we look more into this, I got to take this thing off real quick. The point is, everything that you see listed, whether it's, defense or it's specifically Qualcomm, the point is seeing the broader picture, okay? And especially when we go back to Qualcomm, they provide transformative, trustworthy, mission-focused wireless solutions, services designed to improve government's capabilities. Their government partners can count on them to achieve significant technology and gains excellence in mission-critical performance. To have, for instance, Taro Kono, and we'll jump back to that, this particular gentleman, and everything we introduced over the course of over a year of data-free flow with trust, again, understand just that trust, that security. It's all verifiable. Understand the bigger governmental picture. Understanding that with the IEEE, with what Tadashi Marita has created, working with the government. So whether it's the Apple outline tonight or understanding the bigger picture of how Jasmy can work with the government, not just, benefiting the local economies because the token and the rewards and monetization, you name it, but it's also from a security standpoint with what? Even the working groups, especially when it came to ISO, right? The Defense Department and also the government, that is huge in itself. Why is that? It's because the government wants to embrace the ones that are already established or have something moving forward that's like an all-in-one package, if you will. data privatization or securitization, I should say, and the bigger picture and the ones that are tied to it. They want to embrace the industry players of the past that really got it done. Where do we see this going in the future? There will always, of course, be fudders that will say that is a stretch. But my thing is this: they said the same thing over a year ago and called this whole thing a Jasmy a scam. You know, hence the joke we have: Jasmy scam.